What is going on, guys? It is WrestleGamia here, back with another video. One of the most important factors in getting a wrestler over can be choosing the right theme music. That instant pop when you get to hear someone's theme kick in can be a great moment and has helped the likes of The Rock, Hulk Hogan, John Cena and countless others to become top tier wrestlers. Remove that theme and things can feel very different, as fans of the WWE Network will be able to attest to seeing the Sandman enter at ECW's One Night Stand without Enter Sandman playing, or having Hulk Hogan show up on 2002 Smackdown without Voodoo Child blaring out behind him. Just makes things feel a little off. Well, video games have managed to fall prey to this from time to time too, and today we're going to focus on some of the worst offenders, so be sure to subscribe and click on that notification bell, because today we're looking at 8 wrestlers who had the incorrect theme music in WWE video games. Oh, by the way, shout out to Guru Larry who suggested this list. Thanks, buddy.
Hello, you.
Number 1. Chris Jericho in WWE Smackdown vs Raw 2009. Now, prior to Y2J leaving the WWE and using his own band's song Judas as his entrance theme, it was hard to imagine him with any other music than Break the Walls Down, his classic theme music made by Jim Johnson. The song became so instantly iconic and synonymous with him following his legendary debut on WWE television in 1999 that it would seem like madness for them to replace it. Well, if you played Smackdown vs Raw 2009, that's exactly what you would have gotten. Instead of his recognizable entrance, players were greeted with a strange remix of the song, which goes for a harder metal theme, and while similar, it just isn't quite the same. The reason for this change appears to be that the company had no longer released WWE The Music Volume 8 and wanted to push this version of the song as it appeared on the album. It makes sense from that perspective, we suppose, but it really hinders the immersion of the game, and we really can't imagine it made people shell out for the album, especially as this was during the peak years of torrent sites and pretty much no one was paying full price for music by this point. Jericho would get his classic theme back for next year's edition of the series, and we can only hope when the AEW game eventually comes out, we can get a digital version of Judas that features fans singing along with it, as pre-empty arena shows, this was routinely one of the best parts of Dynamite every week. Number 2. Diamond Dallas Page in WWE 2K15. DDP's WCW theme is many things. Catchy, memorable, but original certainly isn't one of them. In fact, it's such a blatant rip-off of Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit song that legend has it Page once appeared on the same episode of TRL as Dave Grohl, and when the former Nirvana drummer heard the song being played, he immediately got on the phone to his lawyers and sent out a cease and desist. Now, WCW had a history of doing this with their entrance music, and when WWE bought the company over in 2001, they clearly had no intention of breaching any copyright laws. So as a result, they changed his entrance music instead. So when it came time to use the WCW version of DDP in 2K15, the company wisely opted not to resurrect his old theme and instead gave us something that sounded similar, clearly meant to evoke the song, but that was just different enough to avoid any potential lawsuits. One fact worthy of note here is that Page's original WCW theme was actually written by the Mouth of the South himself, Jimmy Hart, though we're pretty sure Kurt Cobain deserved a co-credit. Number 3. The Big Boss Man in WWE 2K16. The Big Boss Man is a legendary figure in WWE history, someone who had a fantastic run during the peak of Hulkamania and then managed to come back and have an arguably even better run as a sadistic heel enforcer during the Attitude Era, sporting an outfit that made him feel like the Shield 1.0 in hindsight. His original theme, Hard Times, is another bona fide Jimmy Hart classic and instantly recognizable to any wrestling fan, but for some reason when he was included as part of the DLC Legend Pack for 2K15, the company neglected to include this song for his entrance, instead giving him Jive Soul Brother, a song to the Boss Man only briefly used while being managed by Slick as a member of the Twin Towers tag team with Akeem. That one certainly hasn't aged well, has it? The reasons for this strange use of music are apparently due to the company not owning the distribution rights to Hard Times for anything outside of their own streaming services, necessitating the replacement. Hard Times in fact doesn't even appear on WWE's Spotify music playlist for the same reason. We really wish they could have fixed this one because it just sounds weird seeing him come down to the ring with it. Number 4. Ravishing Rick Rude in WWE 2K17. Here's another one that was lost due to a lack of licensing rights. Rick Rude is without a doubt a WWE legend, and arguably while his theme song may not be instantly recognizable as some of the others on this list, it still went a long way towards selling his character for fans whenever he walked down the aisle. Sadly, this was not represented in 2K17, and as we said before, it once again comes down to licensing. At some point it looks as if the WWE lost the rights to the song, so we fans were instead left with a pretty underwhelming replacement. This also applies to the WWE Network, which has similarly dubbed over the original theme for Rude, meaning unless you have the original VHS tapes of these shows, you're not going to hear it at all anymore. Also, whilst we're on the subject, are we alone in thinking Rick Rude was his gimmick name? It seems too great a stage name to be real, but no, it turns out it was after all. Number 5. Cactus Jack in WWE 2K18. Though unlike the legal issues surrounding Rick Rude's theme, we really have no idea why this one was changed. Mick Foley's most dangerous alter ego Cactus Jack made an appearance in the Legends wing of this edition of the series, and given that he has one of the most recognizable themes of his era, it was immediately apparent that something was different when players chose him and then watched his entrance.
Making his way to the ring, from Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, weighing in at 287 pounds, Cactus Jack!
Gone was the iconic blues guitar riff, with it instead being replaced with something pretty rubbish if we're being honest. Since this song was written by an in-house studio musician and unsung hero of the WWE, Jim Johnson, the company owns the rights to it, so the fact that it was removed at all is pretty puzzling. The only thing we can think of that might have happened here is that for whatever reason, 2K decided not to pay for the license themselves. While 2K is responsible for the game series, they have to license each individual element from the WWE, and the decision may have been made to not pay for the rights to this one. It's the best explanation we've got, quite frankly, even if it's not a very good one. Number 6. Bam Bam Bigelow in WWE 2K17. Rounding out the hat-trick of musical changes in 2K17 was the Beast from the East, Bam Bam Bigelow. While not as good of a theme song as Cactus Jack's, we still can't figure out why this one was replaced, as once again it was written by Jim Johnson, and so the rights are held in full by WWE. Again, the only reason we can come up with here is that for whatever reason, 2K decided not to pay for the licensing of this one, though considering they seem to have no problem paying for every other theme, we're struggling to figure out why. Maybe there's another explanation and the story will come out one day, but as of now, it remains a mystery. If anyone knows the answer to this, be sure to comment down below. And please WWE, can we get Jim Johnson in the WWE Hall of Fame already? The guy was a secret weapon of the company for longer than we care to remember. Number 7. Ric Flair in WWE 2K18. Now to be fair, this one was nearly correct but had one key element wrong. We're all conditioned to the pop for that initial moment when our favourite superstar's music kicks in. Think of Steve Austin's shattering glass or Bret Hart's guitar squeal. For Ric Flair in WWE, this came in the form of a loud woo that was shouted before the classical sounds of Also Sprach Zarathustra starting up. Apologies if we butchered the name, a song of which any fan of 2001 A Space Odyssey will already be familiar with. The issue here is that the 1988 version of Ric Flair in the game also has this more modern WWE version of his theme, when back then there was no such intro. It is a pretty small detail, but since 2K had gone to the effort of recreating Flair's look from his peak years, complete with his glorious 80s hair, then they could have went the whole way and had his period appropriate theme too. It's possible there were some licensing issues here again, as this is a pre-existing piece of music, and it's possible not using the WWE version would have led to some legal problems that 2K would have rather just avoided. It's certainly not the most egregious example on this list, but the last one might be. Number 8. The Undertaker in WWF Smackdown 2 Know Your Role. While The Undertaker spent most of his career under his dead man guise with his creepy funeral march theme, in the early 2000s he changed up his character to something that more closely resembled the real man behind the gimmick. Coming out on a motorcycle and referring to himself as the American Badass, Taker managed to reinvent himself and make himself relevant all over again when he debuted the character at 2000's Judgment Day pay-per-view. With this change in gimmick came a change in theme, and this was provided by none other than Kid Rock's aptly titled American Badass, which heavily sampled Metallica's Sad but True to great success at the time. Unfortunately, THQ were unable to come to an agreement with Kid Rock to license the song in time for Know Your Role, so The Undertaker was instead given a far less memorable theme song. This would eventually be resolved by the time the next year's game Shut Your Mouth came out, as by then The Undertaker had changed his theme to Limp Bizkit's Rollin', and THQ had made a deal with the band's frontman Fred Durst to let them use the song in exchange for him being included as a playable in-game character, which we're sure many of you still remember. With The Undertaker recently going back to his old character following the acclaimed Boneyard match at WrestleMania 36, now could be the time for a return to one of these themes, even having the Metallica song that Taker entered into. But there you have it guys, 8 wrestlers who had the incorrect theme music in WWE video games. Be sure to leave a comment down below for anyone else who did, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling video game content.